Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens as the 49ers confirm Daniel Farke is staying at the football club. I know that will annoy quite a few of you in the chat, but we're here to talk about that decision today. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the wrong thing to do? You know where I stand a bit to this, but there's also negatives and positives to this decision. So we'll talk a bit about that. I also as well want to discuss a bit about Leeds United's away form as well, because I haven't seen a lot of people talk about our away form. People have just said it's bad, our away form's bad, but I don't think people realise how bad our away form is because we've had some of the best fixtures in the league. We've already played Burnley, we've already played Wolves, we've already played Forest, we've played Fulham. The list goes on of the away games that we've played in our first 6 away games, and we've been pretty embarrassing, to be honest, away from home. It's been that bad away from home. Only one win, and obviously the rest being losses. We've also got the worst goal difference in the division as well for away form. So talk a bit about that. I also as well want to talk a bit about Brenden Aaronson at this moment in time and his sort of Leeds United and his time at Leeds United so far, because I just think there's some things I've been thinking about Brenden Aaronson for a few days now that I've obviously, while the Daniel Farke news has been going on, I've sort of avoided us, I guess, as such. But I think there is some things that are coming home to roost for Brendy, the busy American in our team, and not particularly good American in my personal opinion either. Anyway, let's start with the first story and let's talk a bit about Daniel Farke. So basically it came out today from Sky Sports that Leeds United have no intention of sacking Daniel Farke. So at this moment in time, that is not part of their plans. And I think, to be honest, this was the obvious thing. I know people talk about sort of, they were actually surprised that Daniel Farke hadn't been removed from his post. I disagree with this completely. I never actually thought they were going to remove him. There's a few reasons for this. I think when you look at sort of the Rangers project up at Rangers, if we use them as the perfect the example at this moment in time, Andrew Kavanagh came out after they made the decision to appoint, obviously, Managerial recently, and said that Paraag Marathe was involved in that decision, quite strongly involved. He mentioned that, obviously, he actually name-dropped him in that interview coming out when they talked about the failures of Russell Martin and what to be seen from Danny Role as well. So I think that's important to note. And we also know, if we use Rangers' example again, they spent ages to sack. They spent absolutely ages to sack Russell Martin. They could have sacked Russell Martin after about 4 or 5 games. He was absolutely horrendous for that. Never going to work in the first place. A pretty poor appointment in the first place from the 49ers. And they took the Rangers fans actually starting to protest at games to get rid of him. I think he's the worst ever manager in their history as well. And they still took ages to remove him. So I think that does show a sign of what they're going to do. I also think as well, when you look at sort of what happened when Daniel Farke was brought to the football club, and when we've heard from Paraag what his main strengths and what he likes about Daniel Farke, he said a lot of the time he sees himself in Daniel Farke, and he likes his calmness and he likes the calm approach, and that's how he wants to run the football club as well. And I think when you look at sort of if he wants a calmness approach, well, the calmness approach at this moment in time is unfortunately not to sack the manager, is it? That's not the calm approach. Maybe some might think that is the calm approach. I don't think the calm approach would be when it looks a bit rough to decide to sack the manager. And people might go, that's an extreme take from you, Scott, but that's the way I see it, and I think that's the way they're seeing at this moment in time, the 49ers. And we know as well, because from what Graham Smyth said on the square ball yesterday as well, that if there's anyone that's going to make the decision at Daniel Farke, obviously there's Underwood, etc. There as well. Robbie Evans, who obviously talked in the press at the start of the season, but he did say that you would expect Paraag to have the biggest say on it. And as I said, we know from what Paraag's told us that he likes his calmness. That's what he sees in himself. He wants a calm project. He also said as well, when Daniel Farke was first brought to the football club, that he doesn't think he's been given a fair crack of it in the Premier League, and he wants Leeds United to give him that fair crack in the Premier League, because obviously when Daniel Farke did his interview for the Leeds United job, he talked a lot about, apparently, the Premier League. He didn't really talk at all about the Championship. Daniel Farke's whole sort of presentation to the 49ers was all around what he expects for Leeds United in the Premier League and what he thinks he can achieve with a bigger budget in the Premier League. And I must admit, on this as well, I've seen a lot of this talk where people are bringing up his record at Norwich. I have gone through the Norwich teams before, so I'm not going to do that again on this channel. But why are we talking about his Norwich time? Why are we doing that? Name another manager that would have done better with the likes of Grant Hanley and Tim Krul in the goal that Norwich had at their disposal. What are we talking? I get it, and for me, I understand that obviously it's part of it is that obviously we want a reason to sack Daniel Farke, and I get that, and I think there's ample reasons why we should sack Daniel Farke, but bringing up his Norwich days seems ridiculous. And I heard someone talk about, well, he made good starts at Norwich and it all faded. Which good starts? Which good starts did he make at Norwich? I was checking today because I thought, is that actually true? Did he make good starts at Norwich? He didn't. After his first 11 games in both Norwich seasons, the first Norwich season he had 2 points, and the second one he had 7 points. So let's not create a narrative that he started amazingly well at Norwich and then it faded like it's done this season. This is a completely new season for Daniel Farke. Miles better squad. It's a different scenario. So as I said, you can want Daniel Farke out all you want, and I know that's the majority opinion in the fan base at this moment in time, and I get the reason. We've talked enough about it. But this overarching feeling that there's no reason to sack Daniel, there's no reason to keep Daniel Farke, and fans are basically not supporting the football club anymore if they still want Daniel Farke, the manager of the football club, to remain. I think it's just a bit excessive. And then bringing up his Norwich record as well. I just don't think that's If we were only basing on his Norwich record, we'd have sacked him in the summer. But we didn't sack him in the summer, and a lot of you didn't want to sack him in the summer. I know some did. A lot of people didn't want to sack him in the summer. So for me, if you didn't want to sack him in the summer, and now you bring up his Norwich record, it just seems a bit ridiculous. That's my personal take on it. But as I said, people are entitled to their opinions. That's the whole point of this show. That's what we do on this channel. But obviously, I'm allowed to give my opinion back as well. Anyway, Arthur's been saying a few comments, so let's get into them. Arthur says, it's the players' fault. I don't think, look, we've talked about this quite a bit as well. I don't think it's the players are completely faultless at all, but I also don't think the manager's completely faultless. So I think this idea that the players should all get a free pass when we get a new manager in, or that the 49ers should get a free pass until Daniel Farke's come in, I think it's ridiculous. But I also think the opposite. I think it's ridiculous that Daniel Farke should get a free pass. So I guess that's sort of where I'm at with it, really. How can you blame a manager when Perry pushes the ball back into a danger area, says Arthur? So you've got that opinion, haven't you? You've got that opinion, Arthur, that you think that it's the players' fault and only the players' fault, which is fine. As I said, that's new to the channel, I must admit. Over the last sort of 40 hours since the game's happened, or maybe it's 72 hours now, we haven't seen a lot of this, so this is a new one. And you're still back Calvert-Lewin missing chances against Bournemouth as well, and against Spurs, and the players are no good. Yeah, I get where you're going with this. As I said, my personal opinion is, Arthur, I don't think the players are good enough. But I also, at this moment in time, I don't think the manager's performing good enough. I think there's a contributing factor. I don't think the summer transfer window is good enough. I don't think, personally, that the players are playing good enough at this moment in time. And I don't think the manager's tactical decisions at this moment in time. I want to keep Daniel Farke, but I don't want him to play the same way. If we play the same way, we're going to get the same results. We've got to adapt, in my opinion. I like the idea of going to a double pivot. I think that would help us. I think a lot of our problems are in build-up, and I would like to see him build up. He put an extra body in there. I would also like to see team selection changes. I'd like to see non-tour feature. There's other things I think we can do at this moment in time, other than just sack the manager. But if he doesn't do, then I think that's probably what will happen. Because I do think now, I've said this enough times, but I think we're on the path to a sacking. I think we are on the path. Like, I'm looking at it now, and I'm actually not sure how he gets out of this. I think the Villa is the last throw of the dice. If he was to lose to Villa, then he's probably going to lose his next 3, and then he's lost 6 on the trot, and the whole fan base is then wanting him sacked. So it's a tricky one, I think. I think, even though I'm not Daniel Farke out yet, I do think we're heading that way. It's just so obvious we're heading that way. Majority of the fan base want him out. The fixtures look horrendous. We're not adapting game by game. We're not trying anything new. We're playing the same way. It does seem obvious. But as I said, I'm not surprised actually at all that Daniel Farke hasn't been sacked from what I heard from Paraag. We know he's, as I said, he's massively involved. We've talked about it, obviously, already in this show. And the other thing I want to mention as well is, I think there's this narrative going around in the fan base at this moment in time that basically if we don't sack the manager, then that's like the worst thing ever, and that means that we're definitely going to be relegated, and basically that every single time you get a new manager in, that means that you're automatically safe. Like, I know people have brought up stats about, oh, well, look at this club, they sacked the manager and it went fantastically. I've seen Unai Emery mentioned, obviously, with Villa when it did go well for them. There's also examples when it doesn't, though. There is also examples when it doesn't. You can look at the Nottingham Forest one as an example. Nottingham Forest come up to the Premier League, Steve Cooper's in charge. They decide not to sack Steve Cooper after it was Marinakis nearly ended up sacking him, but decided not to do it. They stayed in the league. And then on the contrary, you can look at the likes of Leicester last season, had Steve Cooper in charge, were in a similar position to Leeds United, moved Steve Cooper out, brought in Van Nistelrooy, and it went terribly. Now, I don't think I think there's context to be applied here. I don't think that Leicester squad was good enough. Maybe the Leeds squad isn't good enough, but I don't think the Leicester squad was good enough. And I think the other thing to apply with, obviously, the Leicester situation is that they brought in the wrong manager. So it doesn't mean because they brought in Van Nistelrooy, that means that we're going to bring in a manager as bad as Van Nistelrooy. So I think that obviously can be tailored back at the conversation as well. But I just don't like this narrative that's building, in my personal opinion. I just don't think it's true that sacking a manager is the be all and end all and everything. That's the saviour of grace, and that it means that that means that we're definitely going to be safe as well. I don't think they're all true, and that every time that happens, then you always stay up. I mean, you can even use Norwich as an example. Like Norwich were in a situation with obviously with Daniel Farke, where they sacked him and they brought in Dean Smyth, and they still finished bottom of the league. So as I said, it's not always the same situation. Nigel says spot on. Slow start at my club, then he brought in quality players. Buendia, Timo Pukki, and other German players were brilliant in the Championship. Premiership is a different ball game. Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah, I think that's again we're struggling with the transfer up. But you'll probably even admit, Nigel, in terms of our net spend and what Leeds United did in the summer transfer window, it's night and day to what Daniel Farke was given at Norwich. Like, I think he was given a net spend in the first season of about £10 million. And I think the second time maybe he was given about £15 million. I mean, as I said, this is why I don't like using the Norwich statistics, because I just think it was just a completely unachievable job. Like, I think you could basically take a lot of the managers that Leeds United fans want to replace Daniel Farke, put them in at Norwich, and I don't think they keep the Norwich team up. So as I said, I think it's hard. I think all I'm saying is Norwich was so underprepared for a Premier League season, in my opinion, with the squad that they had. I still think it's harsh, and I thought it was harsh when people were using it in the summer. But as I said, that's what's going to happen in it, because people naturally, people have their opinion of the situation, and they want to use facts to back up their opinion. I think that's absolutely fine. As I said, but then obviously I'm going to do it in the same response back. But yeah, one thing I think we have learned as well, which I wanted to talk about, is that obviously if we look at the example of Rangers, in my personal opinion, Nigel says spot on as well, who is actually a Norwich fan. So I think that hopefully can sort of, people can understand that a bit more coming from a Norwich fan himself. But what I want to do is if you look at the Rangers example, obviously they've gone to Danny Rose as their manager. They replaced, of course, Russell Martin, which was absolutely horrendous. They brought in Danny Rose. Now, I don't want to talk about Danny Rose as such, but what I do want to talk about is the type of coach that he is. Because is there a situation where they've gone, in my opinion, they've gone from a manager in Russell Martin who's very, very much defined to his style of play. Russell Martin is a possession-based manager, wants to dominate the ball. That's what he wants to do. Very similar, actually, to Daniel Farke in that sense. They've got a few differences, but in terms of a similarity, Russell Martin, in terms of a style of play and the way they want to build up, the build-up style is quite similar. It's a high possession style. But what's interesting about that situation is they've gone from that style under Russell Martin, and they've completely flipped it when since Danny Rose come in, and he's a much more adaptable coach. Russell Martin, Danny Rose at Sheffield Wednesday was a manager who wanted to adapt game by game. He wanted to look at the opposition and look at the best outcome to defeat their weaknesses and stretch their weaknesses and get the best out of his possible team up against the opposition, as opposed to a manager who's got a defined style of play. Now, do you look at that and go, that could be interesting, because is that something then the 49ers are going to look at Leeds United? Do the 49ers look at the managers and think, which way is football going, and what sort of coach do you need, and what sort of credentials does the coach need, and how is the coach going to play at Rangers that could also then be beneficial at Leeds? And I do think there is something in the fact that because they've picked an adaptable coach up at Rangers and they see that's been the best style to get best results, is that a situation where they do the same with Leeds United and they look at sort of a manager again, like we talked about yesterday with Gary O'Neill, who's an adaptable coach, who's going to change his match plan game by game based on opposition? This is the approach I think we should go down, by the way. But I think it's interesting to look at the narrative there, because we've already seen a similarity in terms of taking a while to sack a manager in the first place. Is there going to be another similarity in terms of the style of manager that they actually pick? I think that's something to bear in mind. Let's have a look at some of your guys' comments anyway. Bogle's ranked 31 out of 31 for fullbacks in the side league. Nobody talks about him. I actually think with Jayden Bogle, Michael, I thought he actually started the season really well. I thought he had a brilliant start to the season and was one of our better players. I think Bogle, and we're going to talk about Bogle later in the show when we talk about Brenden Aaronson, I think part of Bogle's game is massively suffering because of Brenden Aaronson. Like, I look at sort of how Bogle and James had a link up last season, and James always used to make them darting runs in behind using his pace that Brenden Aaronson never makes, and Bogle's brilliant at picking out them passes. And I just think having someone like Dan James in front of Jayden Bogle, we would see a better Jayden Bogle, in my personal opinion. But again, we'll talk about Aaronson and the effect he's having on the team later in the show. But I do think that is something to bear in mind with Bogle. I'm not saying he's all been fantastic and it'll change unbelievably so, but what I am saying is naturally who you play with doesn't help you, especially when they've got such a great link up on the right hand side, which I believed that Dan James and Jayden Bogle did. Anyway, let's have a look at some more of your guys' comments. We've bought the wrong players. Yeah, I think there's something in that. I also think maybe we haven't bought the wrong players, but I think we've bought the wrong players for the manager. I don't look at these players and think that the style of play we're trying to play at this moment suits the signings we made at all. Like, I look at sort of the best attributes that we've bought for in the summer, and it's obvious. It's physicality. It's big lads. That's what it is. Like, if you want an easier way of saying it, it's big boys. It's a load of really 6'4" giants in the team. And what have we decided to do? Buy a load of 6'4" giants and play it on the deck. Like, if you want the most basic way to look at it possible, we've bought a load of massive lads. And you think, oh, wow, it's going to be an aerial style. And then we've gone, no, let's just keep it on the floor and play it like five-a-side. And I think then you look at sort of, if you wanted to play on the floor and play almost like a five-a-side style in terms of, as I said, keeping the ball on the deck, maybe you should have picked players that were better at that. Like, you look at the Man City team who want to play a style like that. It's not full of giants, is it? It's full of diminutive players who are good on the ball, press resistant. They're the sort of players that they've gone for. We've done the completely opposite of that, but are trying to play like that. And I think obviously that's something that can be thrown at Farke, but it's also something in a reverse setting that maybe could be thrown at the ownership. Have they matched up what they think Daniel Farke needs for the actual recruitment? Although I think part of it is obviously that they thought that was the best way to go down, and it was like, Farke, you've got to do this style. We're pushing you towards it because we don't think you'll stay up maybe playing your style. I think there's something in that as well. He is below average. People want to jump on Aaronson. Aaronson isn't talented enough to start this level, but nobody can question his work rate. Bogle is lazy and doesn't even get stuck in. I disagree. I don't think Bogle's lazy. Unfortunately, Airblaster, the manager responsible for the way Leeds play. Okay, blame the players, but you can't sack the players, can you? You bang on Jaguar skills. You are bang on. Bogle looks average when he's playing. Bogle looked average when playing for Sheffield United in the Premier League. Yeah, but he's come on leaps and bounds since then. I didn't know we had an attack on Bogle. I thought that was a thing. But we'll talk, as I said, we'll talk about Bogle. Is there any comments not about Bogle? We need a big name like Mourinho. The players will be starstruck and do anything he says. They would trust him because of his track record. I think this is interesting, Michael, because is it Michael? Yeah, it is. I think this is interesting point, Michael. I'd actually, and I've seen this a lot online, it's something, again, I want to sort of rebuff against. I really genuinely don't think that the players are not playing for Daniel Farke. I think they are playing for Daniel Farke. I think and people have said, what's the style? I think the style's obvious. I think the style's obvious, and I think I also believe that the players are playing for it because they're playing a certain style. It's not like they're doing loads of random stuff. Like the obvious style in the last game was to try a slow build-up, methodical approach through the thirds. That was obvious to me. I watched the game. It was so obvious what we were trying to do. We didn't put a load of crosses in. We didn't play a load of long balls. We played a short, slow build-up. That's what we did. So, and then you can see this in terms of, like, do you remember that stat that got popped up? I'm sure you've all seen it, that said Leeds have built up in the slowest, it's built up in the slowest form of any team in the Premier League so far this season. Is that not the players playing for a manager? Because they're showing the desire to play that way by doing that on the football pitch. When players are not listening to the manager and not respecting the manager, they do the opposite of what the manager's asking. Like, I look back to sort of Rafinha under Jesse Marsh, an example. During Rafinha under Jesse Marsh, it was all about really narrow football, and he didn't want any width in the team. And then we played Brighton at home, and Rafinha basically stood on the touchline in the second half, and you go, he's just not listening to Jesse Marsh anymore. That's, for me, a different when they're not playing for the manager. I don't think the players are not playing for the manager at all. I think they are playing for the manager. I just don't think the style's working. And I think we've got an obvious style of play, but I don't think the style of play is working. I think we need to adapt the style of play. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's the players are not playing it. It just doesn't work. I think we get caught up in that a lot. I think we always say this when results are going poorly. People just go, oh, there's no style of play. For me, there's such an obvious style of play. As I said, look back at the graph. The fact that we've got such a slow build-up is an obvious attempt of playing a certain brand of football. That's obvious to me. 49ers won't go for Mourinho. Well, Mourinho's in a job anyway. He's in Benfica, isn't he? So I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, look at Pro look at Pro Sunday, came on so average. Yeah, but he's not getting enough game time, Pro. I mean, potentially shouldn't be getting enough game time at all because he's not good enough for this level, but I think that's another conversation. Stack and Longstaff hardly go into the box for corners, etc. Yeah, well, exactly. We've also recruited. This is one thing that's really problematic in the summer, by the way. We recruited a team full of giants in the summer, as we just talked about, but we didn't bring any set piece takers in. That was like Longstaff is doing an okay job on set pieces, but he's not a set piece taker. He wasn't taking the set pieces at Newcastle. When you look at a set piece taker, I'm looking at like Harry Wilson, who've been on set pieces for year on year on year at every club they've been at. Leeds United didn't recruit a set piece taker in the summer. It was one of the massive flaws in the summer. We bought a lot of massive lads, and we didn't. You think, oh, we're going to stick it on the box over and over again, and then we don't recruit a set piece takers to actually play the ball into the box. That is bizarre, and that's where again you can look at the 49ers and go, what are you doing? What's going on there? What was the plan not to buy a set piece taker with all these giants that you've bought? Because it's not like I don't think we had one in the squad in the first place. It wasn't like we already had somebody. Even now that. Fans only want the best for our teams, but if you take our sporting director spent a lot of money bringing in very poor players, so fans have every right to moan if the team is losing. Yeah, they do. I sacked players, says Arthur. I'm not when Leeds United are not going to sack players. That's because they're worth too much money. I said it in the summer about players like Biol, Bornau, Nemecha, Calvert-Lewin, etc. not good enough. Bornau never plays, so blaming Bornau I think is madness because he never even features. Nemecha's only played about probably an hour in his whole time at Leeds, maybe a bit longer, maybe 2 hours of football. So again, I don't think we would. That is, I just don't agree. Let's have a look. Not buying this crap covering for Bogle. We need to go to a 3-5-2, 3-4-1. Take Brenden Aaronson off and play James out wide, Gabby opposite, Okafor and DCL up front. Fair enough. I said I didn't know we had such a strong feeling towards Jaden Bogle actually, but Longstaff said don't buy him in the summer. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Totally agree. We need to be more direct, but will Farke adapt? I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure. Bielsa sacked for no plan B. Managers had sussed him out. The truth is he did not get the players he wanted. Poor squad. Then what do we do? Sound familiar? Well, I don't think we ever should have sacked Bielsa, but that's a conversation for probably another day as well. But I get what you're saying. There has been a consistent from Leeds fans when things go wrong, even when shipping goals, it's Aaronson's fault. It's beating a dead horse. We didn't recruit well up front. We did in the midfield. I don't think we recruited well anywhere at this moment in time, mate. Aaronson works hard, but he's bang average as well. We will talk about Aaronson, so I'm conscious I don't want to talk about it too much because I want to talk about the away form first. I mean, we could go Aaronson next if you want. We'll go Aaronson next, because it wasn't in the running order, but we will go Aaronson next because Aaronson seems to be dominating the chat. Anyway, let's move on to Brenden Aaronson. Let's get him up. My feeling on Brenden Aaronson is, and I was thinking this the other day when watching him, and actually I probably should have mentioned it in the match reaction, but I didn't mention it in the match reaction because I personally felt that there was just bigger fish to fry. Like I thought the Daniel Farke situation was a bigger subject, so I didn't talk about Brenden Aaronson. I think it's so obvious to me that Brenden Aaronson's not good enough. And I think you can watch him for 10 minutes and realise he's not good enough. And it's something that actually, it took me back to listening to Paul Scholes talk about his time in the Premier League and how he played in the Premier League. Watch Brenden Aaronson next time he gets on the ball. He's so frightened when he gets the ball, it's ridiculous. And it almost looks, the best players in football look like they've got so much time on the ball. Look at one of Leeds United's best players, an example, Tanaka. Tanaka always looks like he's got ages and ages on the ball. We pass it to Brenden Aaronson, he's like drifting right, drifting left, sort of darting his head all over the place. And it looks like he's playing, he's having to play at 300 miles an hour. And I think that's what I'd be like if I got the ball because the game's too fast for me. My brain can't keep up with that sort of physicality and that pace of game. And I watch Brenden Aaronson. It's so blatantly obvious to me that he can't keep up with the speed of the Premier League. Not in terms of he's quick enough, but in terms of his brain and his decision making. Because every time he gets the ball, it just looks so rushed all the time. And the top players are not like that. Like I remember listening, as I said, to Paul Scholes talk on the Overlap recently. And he talks about every time he got the ball, he felt like the game slowed down. Like he could see everything in slow motion. And the best players have the most time on the ball because they can see the game in such a better light than the average person like us lot watching, unless there is a professional football in the comments, but I'd be surprised if there was. Not any guys footballing quality. But I think with Brenden Aaronson, as I said, it's so obvious because he doesn't have that. He's almost like one of the fans playing on the pitch where he's like, he just can't keep up with the game, and he gets it and he's like, oh my God, it's all so fast. I need to move it quick, left, right, chip, fall over. It's like, it's a nightmare for him. And I think, and as I said, it just took me back to something that Scholes mentioned regarding regarding his own playing career. And he just said he just never had that. And as I said, you watch the rest of the team and they all look, in my opinion, except Brenden Aaronson, like they've got more time than they have. And that's what Premier League footballers look like, in my opinion. They all look like they've got more time. And Brenden Aaronson just looks to me so lost in that sense because it's just the game's just too fast for him. It's just obviously too fast for him. Because, and as I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's where he's at. But what I don't get is, we've got Dan James on the bench, who for me, every time he's come on, has looked like he's offered something. He also had a really good link-up on the right-hand side last season with Jayden Bogle at right-back. And I look at it and I go, why is Dan James not playing on the right-hand side? We can talk about Wilfred Gnonto, and I think he should be playing, but at least he's had injuries as he's not been involved in matchday squads recently, maybe because of that. But Dan James, every time he comes on, does more in the game time than Brenden Aaronson did all game. Like I remember even at the weekend, he comes on, cuts inside, does a shot, he gets parried out, and we have a really good chance from it, and Bogle ends up putting the ball wide, funnily enough. And I also, as I said, I look at the other players playing around Brenden Aaronson at this moment in time as well. And I really feel like they're suffering because of Brenden Aaronson. Like, and as I said, it's not, I don't even want to criticise him too much because he's trying his best. He's trying. But it looks to me like it's so obvious that he just cannot play at this level. It's just, for me, it's almost blatant at this point. As I said, next time he gets the ball, just look around. It looks like he's got no time on the ball. And if you pass it to Snaka, it looks like he's got about 3 years on the ball. And that is the difference. Because they're calm and they're composed because they know they're going to play at that level. But not just that, they can see that it all slows down for them. So then it looks easier. Like you watch Van Dijk play, and again, it looks exactly the same to me. Like it looks so slow for Van Dijk. Like it looks like he didn't even have to try. And that's what the top players look like. Brenden Aaronson's just not there because his football IQ is just not good enough, and his decision making and his quickness of decision making isn't there. And and unfortunately, because of that, it's never going to work. And people can talk about, oh, he could get better. He will not get better. This will not get better. This is a signing that was just going to be bad, and that is how it's going to be. He's not quick enough decision making, and Daniel Farke cannot change that. And a new manager coming in won't be able to change that. It won't be any different with any new manager. He is just not good enough to play at this level, and that is blanket. Anyway, let's get to your guys' comments. Bundesliga is Aaronson's level. Premier League is a whole different beast. Yeah, well, the Premier League is so much faster than any other league in Europe. It really is. And Brenden Aaronson, yeah, as I said, maybe in Spain when it's a bit slower, or maybe in Serie A where the game's a bit slower, and he can use his physicality and he can be that buzzy bee round the pitch off the ball. And then when he gets on the ball, it's not as intense and they're not pressing straight on him. I think that might serve him better. But as I said, at this moment in time, that isn't going to be the case for Brenden Aaronson because he's in the Premier League. And as I said, honestly, I promise you on my life, this will not work. It won't work. There's not, and Daniel Farke has to take him out. And it's not a ploy on him. He looks like a really nice guy. I know he went and people will say snaked us to go into the Bundesliga when we got relegated. Fine. Some other players would have done that as well. If we're being totally honest, who are still playing now. So, as I said, I'm not critiquing that because he shouldn't have done that. But what I am saying is, I don't think he's a bad guy, Brenden Aaronson. I don't think that he's not trying. I just think it's like picking someone out of the crowd and putting him in the team. They would struggle like hell as well because they're not good enough. And that is just how it is. It's as simple as that, really. Aaronson isn't a Premier League okay. So what do Leeds do in the January transfer window? Well, that's what we've talked about this a few times, Jaguar Skills, but Leeds United need to go in the transfer window and buy a right winger. They have to buy a right winger in the transfer window, 100%, because that is the worst position, in my opinion, on the team. Like, I know we've got problems in a lot of areas at this moment in time. I actually think we've got a potential problem in the goal as well with Perry. I don't. Let's see a bit longer with him, but I think we might have an issue there. But one thing, and I don't think, I know people quite like Darlow, but Darlow's not good enough for me either in the Premier League. I think he makes too many mistakes himself because he's not that step-up goalkeeper. But the number one position in all of the team at this moment in time for me is right winger. We have to buy a right winger in January. Wilson was there in the summer. We somehow messed that one up. Apparently Wolves could have signed him, yet we can't sign him. That seems ridiculous. But we should have managed to get Wilson in the summer, and that would have made been a massive help for us. But we can't play Brenden Aaronson on the right. It's got to be Nonto or it's got to be James. They're not the answer in my opinion, but they're more of the answer than Brenden Aaronson for sure. What does he serve them lunch and eat to? Michael says Aaronson is brilliant at breaking up the counters, but he doesn't progress the ball enough, in my opinion. Playing this striker in on goal, I feel he's getting sick. He's getting stick. He doesn't deserve our own cap. But Brenden Aaronson, as I said, he's just not good enough. Our own captain isn't performing to the level required at the moment. Yeah, I think Ampadu is a problem. I think that Ampadu is a problem. We'll probably talk about that, actually. I might do a video on that tomorrow because I can't do a live stream. But I think Ampadu is a huge problem at this moment in time because I think what people just go, I'll just drop him and put Stack in there. When Ampadu doesn't play, the team suffers. It has since he arrived at the club. Ampadu quite clearly has a really, really good calming presence on the park, and he makes the players better, and we play better with him in the team. The win ratio with him in the team compared to without the team speaks for itself. His leadership qualities are massive on the pitch. So I'm conscious not to take Ampadu out for that particular reason. But he's got to improve his personal performances because he's not good enough at this moment in time. He's not playing well enough. But he's not the only one. He's not the only one. And I actually think if he started playing better, we would see a knock-on effect for the rest of the team because he is the captain. And when the captain's failing, like when Van Dijk's not had his best time this year at Liverpool, and you're seeing the problem there with him as well. If you're asking me, mate, it's time to fold the club. Felix has got the solution. Felix has the solution. Fold the club. Yeah, potentially. No, I'm joking. Nonto has to be transferred as well. I ain't seen that, mate, but if that is, I will talk about it tomorrow. We'll sub, though. Thank you very much. Thanks, mate. Thanks. Anyway, let's talk a bit about the away form. So this is the away form. This is Leeds United's away form at this moment in time. We've got the worst goal difference in the whole league for away form. But do you know what's more concerning? I can understand sometimes having the worst away form. We've only played 6 games away from home. I get it. It makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is the games we've played. And this is where I'm seriously worried now about our away form. And if you want a bit of a sort of hammer blow statement at the start of this segment, we are going to end the season in the bottom 3 for away form, no matter what happens. And in fact, I would expect we end the season potentially with the worst away form in the whole league. And that is probably going to be how it is now going forward. And the reason I'll say this is we've played 6 games away from home, but and we've won 1 and we've lost 4, and have we lost 4 or 5 away from home? And we've played all the good teams. We've played all the good games. So we've played away from home so far: Wolves, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and Burnley. We've played all 4 of them already, and we're still where we are in the league with 1 win. All 4 of them played, by the way. So I'm looking at the other games we've got to play. All right, we've played Arsenal away, fine. We've still got to go to Man City. We've still got to go to Liverpool. We've still got to go to Chelsea. We've still got to go to Man United. We've still got to go to Aston Villa. We've still got to go to Bournemouth. All these places, we've got to go to Spurs as well. All these grounds that are going to be well hard grounds to go to, we've still got to go to them all. We've still got to play them all away from home. Now, and you look at it and you go, the only away game really we've got left, we've got a few away games left maybe that we can pick up points. Like you've got Everton away maybe, but they're having a fantastic season at home. I still think, are they unbeaten at home? No, they've lost 1 game at home. They lost to Spurs at home. We've also we've got West Ham away potentially, which is a good away game. But that is about it. The rest of it is awful, absolutely horrendous. Brentford away is not particularly great, but that's one of our better ones left. Like, there's not. I'm looking at it now, going, we've basically played all the poor teams away already. All the poor teams away. We've got Sunderland away. Potentially that could be points, but again, it's not a particular game you look at now at this moment in time with them sat in 4th and go, wow, what a fixture that is for us. So I am concerned about our away form because we have played all the crap teams away. We've done it all. So where are we going to pick up points away from home now? Where are we going to get points now? I think we could end the season with not winning another away game. I really could. If we don't win at West Ham, Everton, or Brentford, maybe we haven't really got any other away games where you go, we're going to get a win there at all. because we've played them all, and that is deeply concerning. Imagine, as I said, imagine having the worst goal difference in the league, having already played 4 of the bottom 6 away already in your first games, and we're still got the worst goal difference in the division away from home. It's absolute. We are absolutely horrendous away from home. We are horrendous. In fact, to be honest with you, even the Wolves game, like we won the Wolves game away from home. We went 1-0 down, which was pretty poor. They got through and scored. And then we had about a 20-minute spell where we were fantastic, scored 3 goals. And let's be honest, we were parked in the second half, holding on to try and keep the win, which we did, and that was a great result. But it wasn't like it wasn't an unbelievably convincing performance. Like, you look back at the statistics, and actually they were in the game. So I am seriously worried about our away form, because even if a new manager comes in, we've got all the big games to play away from, except at bar Arsenal. We ain't gone to anywhere. We ain't got to Newcastle yet either. I know they're not having a good season, but they're still performing at home. So if Leeds United are to remain in this division, it's going to have to be the home form, and this is the positive. This is the positive, because we've still got to go to Wolves. No, we've not got to go to Wolves, but at home we've still got Wolves to play. We've still got Fulham to play. We've still got Forest to play. Burnley's, Brentford's at home. We've got loads of home games where we can pick up points, tons of them. So we can be good at. We can stay up on home form for sure. We've seen got like Crystal Palace at home to play, which is not an awful fixture. So we've got a lot of good home fixtures left. We've got Sunderland at home, which potentially could be a good fixture for us as well. So I'm not worried about the home form at all, because our home form's been pretty good. We've played not the greatest teams at home. And we've got decent results. We've only lost 1 game at home. It's this away form now that I just look at it and go, well, where's this win coming away? It's gonna have to all be at home. It really is, because we've had, and I didn't realise at the start of the season, but at the start of the season we have seen it, and we should have gone. Our start of the season away from home is really strong, and if we are going to get away wins, it's probably going to be early in the season. I didn't think that at the time, but looking back, that was the situation. It really was. 49ers were ambitious, were under ambitious with signings. 49ers failed massively this summer. That is the biggest issue. Yeah, but we are here now, aren't we, Michael? That's the problem, is that, yes, the 49ers didn't do a good enough job in the summer. I completely agree with you. But we can't change that now. So we can't just go, we're relegated and not bother. Like, we've got to try find the way of getting the best out of this squad that's not good enough, fundamentally. And that's why people want to change the manager as well, I guess. Burn 24 says, one of the arguments against getting someone new in now is how terrible the next 4 games would be. Would a new manager like to would be for a new manager to try and get any sort of bounce? Yeah, that is a huge issue. That is a huge issue. Our next games, I think if our next games were like, I don't know, Fulham away, Wolves at home, I don't know, Brentford away and Palace at home, something like that in the next 4, you'd probably look at it and go, maybe you sack him now. He's got a really nice run of fixtures. You get a nice bounce and off you go. But because of our fixtures, as you rightly said, it's so bad that I said this the other day. It's going to kill him before he's going to kill the new manager before he even started. But even, as I said, even going on to this away form though, still, even with this new manager coming in, if this does happen at some point, which it's not going to happen at this moment, as we said, because Sky Sports have confirmed that won't happen. We're still going to be going into a lot of away games, because they're the worst games. I think we can give pretty much every team at home a game at Ellen Road. We might lose some by 3 or 4 goals. That might happen at home. I don't think it will, actually. But I think we can be competitive in every single home game. My issue has always been that away from home, we're going to just completely toss it off, and it's going to be horrendous away from home. And now we're in a position where it's so bad. The away form's been so bad, and we've played so many of the easy fixtures that for the rest of the season, it's just going to be loss after loss away from home. It really is, because there's just no. As I said, other than West Ham away, there really isn't any away game where you look at it and go, that's a really good opportunity for Leeds to get points, because we've already played them all. That's the problem. Maybe Sunderland, as I said, and West Ham away and Everton away. But again, I don't think they're brilliant away games. Maybe West Ham. Maybe West Ham's a pretty good away game, but the rest of them are not. Like even teams like Brentford's, etc. These teams are good at home. They're better at home than they are away. So Brentford at home, I think we can give them a really good game. I really worry about going to Brentford away. I don't think that's going to be a happy hunting ground for us at all. I know it's the game that kept us up when we obviously stayed in the division under Jesse Marsh, but as I said, that is a problem for sure. We are shipping 2 to 3 goals a match. Nonto and James are not fixing that. No, they're not. They're not fixing that. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that we need to not play. Like, you're talking about Calvert-Lewin, I think, as well, Michael, saying he's not good enough. But it's not Calvert-Lewin's fault that we're conceding tons of goals at the back either, if that makes sense. Chris says, one word about that decision, abysmal. Which decision is that you're talking about? Are you about the manager's decision, presumably? Fair enough. There is no manager that will save this team of players not good enough, no quality. Well, yeah, no, but we've got to try, haven't we? We've got to try find solutions. That's why I've talked about playing a double pivot. That's why I'm going to talk, obviously, when we next play, about the new different players that we could play and different team selections we could play to try and get the best out of this current team. Because we can't just give up. Like, we tried so hard last year. We played 46 games to get ourselves into this league. What I don't want to see is after 11 games we give it up. Like, we want to give it the best go we can. If we do go down, we go down. But let's go down fighting at least. Let's go down trying to grind for every single point, giving 100%, trying to adapt to the opposition, trying to get the best out of this team that's obviously not good enough. But let's try and get the best out of this team we can do to try to, because we can stay in this league. As I said, staying in this league is totally plausible. We have been good at home. We've got a lot of good games to come at home. Yes, not coming up, but later in the season, we've got lots of good games to come at home. We win them home games, we'll stay in the league. That will happen. If we beat the teams around us at home, we'll stay up. So it can happen. There's no reason why we can't win home games to stay in this division. The problem is going to be if we lose them games, obviously. But I'm not giving up hope that we can't stay up yet, because what's the point? We might as well pack it all in. I'm not in that position at all. The only managers that would give any confidence to me are ones that we have to buy out of their current deals. No good free agents, in my opinion. I disagree on that. Like, Terzic is a free agent at this moment in time. Managed to get Dortmund to a Champions League final. So I completely disagree on that. I think there's definitely good free agent managers out there. I mean, Terzic, as I've talked about a few times, he would be my first pick as a manager. I think he's the best one we've got. He's the best available candidate. I just don't think he'd take the job. I've never said Diesel wasn't good enough. I said we should go to a 3-5-2, Okafor and Diesel up front, and drop Aaronson and Bogle and play James outright. He has the pace to play both ways at this level. I don't like a 3-back. I don't like a 3-back. I don't think it's the play, in my personal opinion. There's a few reasons why I don't like the 3-back. If you play 3-5-2, like you mentioned there, Michael, what ends up happening is out wide, you're always 2-on-1. So most teams play with a back 4, which means that they've got a winger and they've got a fullback playing out wide. If you play a back 5, and you play a 3-5-2 or a back 3 or a back 5, you will always be left open out wide, because with your 3-5-2, it essentially plays like a sort of 5-3-2. And if you're playing a 5-3-2, what ends up happening is their fullbacks just have the freedom of the park, because nobody marks the fullbacks. We've had this at England before under Gareth Southgate. The first tournament that we played under Gareth Southgate, when we in that summer, the summer we lost in the semi-finals to Croatia, every single game we had an issue, because we played 3-5 or 5-3-2 and basically every single time their fullbacks have the freedom of the park, because nobody can get out to them, because the midfield 3 can't get out wide because there's too much running to do, and you got 2 up front, so there's nobody to mark the wide men. So I just don't like I just don't like it. I don't think we need to do it. I really don't think that's the play. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't do it. And if you go 3-4-3, like some people will say, well, go 3-4-3, Scott, then you've got a wide man up top and you've got a wide man at the back, so you've got, as you said, you've got 2 wide people. Essentially, what ends up happening then is that basically you're outnumbered in the midfield, because everyone plays then with a midfield 2, and everyone plays with midfield 3, and you've only got 2 in there, so you get outnumbered in the midfield. It's the same problem that Man United have got. So I don't like it. I just don't like it. 5-2 should go into 5-4-1 when on defence. Yeah, it could do, but then if you play a 5-4-1, mate, you're so defensive, and then what ends up happening is when you play out, your number 9's just so isolated, and you can't bring anyone into the game. I honestly don't. I don't personally think the 5-back or the 3-back formations with our current crop of players is the one. I know people like it. I know it might suit Goodmanson and Bogle potentially, but I just don't think we should be doing that personally. I think you just get outnumbered somewhere on the pitch. You either get outnumbered on wide if you're playing a 5-3-2, or if you're playing a sort of 3-4-3, you get outnumbered in the middle of the park. Because anywhere you are, because you've got an extra centre-back, you're going to be outnumbered somewhere. Michael says, Aaronson is already playing 2 versus 1 because Bogle doesn't overlap this year. Gabby does, Bogle doesn't. No, but I'm on about in defence, mate. I'm not on about in attack. And also, I think Bogle does overlap. I think he's overlapped quite a lot, if I'm being honest. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the show there because we've been going for 44 minutes. These shows are getting longer and longer because the chat's are bigger than it's ever been at this moment in time. But what I would say as well is thanks all for supporting it, because we've had fantastic numbers over the last sort of few days on this channel. So really appreciate your support. For anyone that's new watching, I hope you're enjoying the shows. We've obviously got some regulars in there as well. And I also want to apologise as well, because usually on these shows, I can read out all the comments, but there's just been too many today. So it's if you hadn't had all your comments read out like I usually do, I do apologise. But when there's more people, it makes it obviously more tricky, which I'm sure you guys can understand. But also as well, if you've made it to this point in the show, if you could drop a like, subscribe, if you can do a hype as well, that would be fantastic if that's an available option to you. So that would be, it might boost the channel and helps other people see this sort of content. And also as well, lads and lasses, if you have got to this point in the show and you've missed a lot of the start, I think people forget it. You can obviously just skip back, and we talked earlier in the video about Daniel Farke, and we talked about Brenden Aaronson as well. If you missed that, so definitely go and check that out. But other than that, everybody, I will see you all later. Bye for now. Bye.